Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of Season 10 of the Dark Money Files, in which we shine a light into a murky world. I am Ray Blake, and with me is my co-host, friend and business partner, Graham Barrow. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Ray.
Now, Graham, keeping track on investors across multiple global jurisdictions and maintaining accurate, real-time records is no mean feat, and is why so many unscrupulous individuals can get away with all the dishonest, shady things they do: money laundering, fraud and international criminal behaviour.
Oh, you don't need to tell me, Ray. This is a massive concern for fund managers, amongst others, who do their very best to sift the chaff from the wheat. Well, rather it was.
Yes, with Cure, that's K-U-R-E, a new product by Deeppool, fund managers can enjoy a single global investor record, updated with consolidated data from anywhere in the world as and when. And this one system handles every facet of the entire customer lifecycle.
You know, if I was a talented, forward-thinking fund manager, this is the product I would use. And many of the best already do. You can find out exactly how it works at deep-pool.com.
Good idea. Now, are you one who enjoys the speculative fiction of the late Michael Crichton, Graham?
Well, I'd say yes, Ray, maybe with the exception of his late period work, State of Fear, which I felt he let himself down a bit with climate change denial.
Well, I think you're right there. But I recently reread what many think is his finest work, Jurassic Park, and I was struck, and not for the first time, by a turn in the story that made me think about our approach to financial crime.
All right, there are some easy gags to be made here, I suppose, about compliance and living in the age of the dinosaurs.
Yeah, and we're not going to be making any of those.
Oh, right. Oh, go on then, all right. So, what was this particular piece of narrative that caught your eye, Ray?
Well, I suppose I should issue a spoiler alert, but quite frankly, our listeners have had 30-odd years to get across this book, so I don't feel we're spoiling very much.
No, one spoiler I don't mind dropping is that the sequel isn't as good by some considerable margin.
Well, that's certainly true.
Anyway, Ray, the scene.
Yes. Now, we join the action when all is not well in the park, and it becomes important to account for the whereabouts of all of the dinosaurs.
Well, yeah, get that. How do they do that, Ray?
Well, they've got computers, Graham. It's automated.
Blimey. Of course it is.
Well, there's a network of cameras that basically counts how many Triceratops and Apatosauruses and Diplodocuses it can see.
Well, and full marks for the pronunciations there, Ray. Excellent.
Thank you.
And now you mention it, I remember.
Now, what they don't know at this point is that they have more beasts than they thought they had, because there's been some breeding, thanks to some of the DNA gaps having been filled with amphibian genes.
You know, nature will always find a way, Ray.
Quite so, Graham.
But the computers don't report this, do they?
No, they don't.
Why is that, Ray?
Well, because the computers stop counting when they find the, in quotes, correct number of dinosaurs.
What do you mean by that?
Well, say there are supposed to be 25 velociraptors.
Okay.
Well, the computers will scan for velociraptors, and when they've located 25 unique velociraptors, they stop and report success.
So they don't look for a 26th?
Nope.
That seems, well, short-sighted, if you'll pardon the pun.
I won't. But actually, it's understandable. It shouldn't be possible for there to be more than the lab has birthed, because the lab only produces females. So there's no way that there ought to be new dinos that they don't know about.
Except, as we just said, nature will always find a way, Ray.
Well, quite. In this case, through the amphibian traits that provide for spontaneous sex change in times of depopulation.
But nobody anticipated that, so the computers stopped counting at 25. Why did they have them then?
Well, it was a really important control, Graham, against the possibility of any of the dinosaurs escaping the island. If you know how many you have and can locate every one of them on your island, then you can sleep well. That's the theory, at least.
So basically, the system was set up to guard against one very specific risk and was blind to another rather unanticipated one.
Well, you've seized both the plot point and the parallel to our world, Graham.
Oh, thank you. So the machine found what it looked for. It didn't find what it wasn't programmed to look for.
I feel the imminent arrival of Donald Rumsfeld into this scene, Graham.
Well, he does have something of the sad-faced Diplodocus about him, don't you think?
Well, be that as it may, this reminds me of his unknown unknowns construct, what I believe has come to be thought of as the Rumsfeld matrix.
Indeed, Ray. But I think it's relevant because our controls are commonly built around known unknowns, established typologies, and data artifacts that we go looking for.
And we find them, Graham, because we find what we look for.
Unlike you too. Leave that for another day. But we're less well sighted on the unknown unknowns.
Yeah, because we can't articulate what we're looking for to the extent that we can program a machine to go and look for it.
And if we could, it wouldn't be an unknown unknown, it would be a known unknown.
I can see why Rumsfeld got into trouble over this whole concept. It requires a certain amount of concentration, doesn't it?
I think it does. So perhaps we should zoom out a little and look at the entire Rumsfeld matrix. We've essentially got a 4-quadrant model of the sort so beloved of consultants the world over.
We have, and the x-axis running from left to right we might call information. It runs from information we don't know on the left right through to information we do know on the right.
Okay, got that. And the y-axis?
Well, that one we can call awareness. It runs from unaware at the bottom to aware at the top. I'm using aware of here instead of known to try and avoid the what you might call the Rumsfeld semantic vortex.
Oh, the old RSV. Yeah, is that what the one where you disappear up your own?
Yeah, well, quite. Yes, absolutely. Now, we've got 4 quadrants, Graham. In the top right, we've got high awareness and high information.
So this is what we are aware that we know. So we know that we know it. The known knowns, as Don would have put it. Or in fact, did.
Well, yes, exactly. Now, if we apply this to the set of transactions made by all of our customers, these are the ones we fully understand the nature and purpose of. These are the salary payments, the loan instalments, the grocery shopping, and so on.
Okay, I get that.
Now, in the top left, we have high awareness but low information. This is what we are aware that we don't know.
Okay, so these are the transactions where we don't know the nature and purpose, and because they've been alerted to us as being potentially problematic, we are now aware that they might be a problem.
That's exactly correct, Graham. These known unknowns are potential SARs in waiting, or at least might need some thinking about and customer outreach.
Gotcha. So, bottom left, we have things we don't know that we're not aware of, like unexpected baby dinosaurs.
Well, yeah, these are the unknown unknowns. They are potentially problematic transactions that we're unsighted on because they haven't triggered our machine's rules or scenarios. So we haven't had an alert and consequently haven't done anything about them. We just don't know about them.
On a slightly happier note then, we have the bottom right quadrant, of course.
Yes, we do. This is information that we have, but are unaware that we have.
All right. So in a transaction monitoring sense, these are transactions that are obviously legitimate, but we haven't actually looked at them and identified them as such.
You've got it.
So I think we're there, Ray. 4 quadrants across which our risks are distributed.
Yes, and as far as traditional transaction monitoring is concerned, we're only worried about one of them.
The known unknowns.
Yes, what we're aware that we don't know enough about. We've set those rules and scenarios in our transaction monitoring, and our transaction monitoring system finds what we've told it to go and look for.
Yes. Now, is that quadrant bigger than the unknown unknowns or smaller?
No idea, Graham. We're not cited on it.
So how can we get sight of it, Ray?
It's not easy. Most people are looking to machine learning to get there for us.
And to some extent, I can see that working. But there are two other quadrants that our transaction monitoring seems to be ignoring as well, aren't there?
Yes, all that conventional transaction monitoring looks for is those transactions that might, based on known typologies and set rules, indicate that further scrutiny is warranted. Its entire purpose is to carve out the known unknowns population.
And we know it's leaving behind an unknown unknowns population of indeterminate size.
But that leaves two other quadrants it's also ignoring.
Yeah, the known knowns, all the stuff that we know is legitimate, and the unknown knowns, all the stuff that is actually legitimate, but we don't know that because we've not looked at it.
So, known knowns, enough said, all good. But it strikes me that there's a massive trick here that we're missing in overlooking the unknown knowns. Because the more we can proactively identify this stuff as legitimate, and if you like, assign it a green flag, then the more we chip away at the unknown unknowns.
So you mean using transaction monitoring rules to identify legitimate rather than problematic transactions?
I mean, yeah, why not? But perhaps as well as, not rather than.
Well, I can see no reason why not.
No, nor can I. To make it work, you might need to learn a little more about your customers and their typical legitimate behaviour. But you know, if you've done your KYC properly, you've got a great head start. And if your transaction monitoring learns as it goes along and feeds that learning back into the KYC in terms of dynamic expectations, then that's another big step forward.
Yes, and there's a further aspect to this as well, Ray. This just seems way more customer friendly as an approach.
Yes, it does. I mean, we're getting closer to customers to understand their legitimate behaviour, not just to identify the bad stuff. As things are now, it's almost that we think the good, legitimate customers don't deserve our attention.
It does seem mad that we choose only to get comfortable with our customers in cases where our machines first tell us we might need to be uncomfortable with them.
I agree, and for me this is a big frustration with the status quo. I think the whole concept of finding only what you're looking for stretches to our MI approach too.
Oh?
Well, yeah, as well as the Jurassic Park reread, I've also recently picked up Matthew Said's book, Rebel Ideas, The Power of Thinking Differently, and it sparked a number of thoughts.
It's very good, isn't it? So does that include the one about MI?
Yeah, so in the book there's a case study from a chap called Michael Hausman, who in 2010 was running some research to identify why some call centre workers perform better than others. They looked at the data they had on 50,000 people who'd taken a 45-minute online assessment and been subsequently hired.
And what did they find?
Nothing for a long time, until on a whim someone decided to look at one of the almost accidental items in the dataset.
Which was?
The browser people had used when accessing the assessment.
Really?
Yeah, some of the candidates had used Safari, some had used Firefox, others had used Internet Explorer, and others again Chrome. Here's the interesting thing. Those who had filled out their assessments on Firefox or Chrome stayed in their jobs 15% longer than those who used Safari or Internet Explorer.
What?
Yep. Then they checked the number of absences from work. And users of Firefox or Chrome had 19% fewer absences from work than those who'd used Internet Explorer or Safari. Also, those who used Firefox and Chrome had higher productivity, higher sales, happier customers, and shorter call times.
Well, I'll make sure I use Chrome in future. So no, I don't understand. I don't understand what was going on.
Yeah, well, what Hausman's team concluded was this. Internet Explorer and Safari are pre-loaded default browsers on Windows and Apple devices. So if you've changed nothing, those are what you will use. You just turn the computer on and they're there they are. But to be a Chrome or Firefox user, you've had to wonder if there might be a better option, research it, download it, install it.
And I suppose if you feel you have the power to do something and not just settle for the status quo, that might mean you bring qualities to your working life with you.
Well, that's what the team thought. And you may think that's a bit of a stretch, but when there was no other correlation to performance in the dataset, and this one factor correlated so very consistently across multiple positive outcomes, the team concluded it was real.
And I see your point, Ray. Given the aim of predicting performance, you'd never have thought to go on looking at this data routinely.
Yeah, it would have remained a mystery because you only find what you look for.
Just like the dinosaur counting machines.
Indeed.
Well, lots to think about there, Ray.
Well, I'm glad you think so, Graham. We've had a bit of a trilogy now on data and analysis, haven't we? Where next?
I've got a couple of things in mind, Ray, as potential episodes, but there's also something I think might imminently be filling our news feeds that might warrant a special episode.
Sounds exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.